You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
How far is too far when it comes to fighting for peace? Well, fellow systematic geekologists, there may be a show that really pushes the boundaries when it comes to that question. And so welcome. We are in the midst of our HBO special series of HBO shows, bingeable shows. And a lot of us are in our listenerverse, and hosts are big time comic book fans. And so HBO put out quite the comic book show with Peacemaker. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm really excited about this discussion because this show was just a surprise hit for me, and I loved every second of it. I won't bury the lead. I love this show. I thought it was fantastic, and pushed the boundaries on a lot of fronts. And so we're going to discuss that today. So I am Will Rose, one of your hosts. I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I just came back from Germany just to be on this episode. So you guys, glad you're here. And so let's go around and introduce ourselves. Daniel.
Hello, I'm Daniel. You may also hear my son guest speak in the background, and I apologize in advance.
Real people with real lives. We don't apologize for that. Christian, how you doing?
Okay, how are you, Will?
We're good. What are you up to today?
Well, other than the fact I just survived another fake fire drill in the dorm room, I had OT2 today for my class, and that was a lot of fun.
Fire drills and crying babies and jet lag from Germany. Man, we are real people with real lives, but love to geek out with one another. So let's just hop right in to the episode. Before we get into the actual TV show, I would, like to get into a little bit of the history of this character, and I'll share some things. And if you guys know of anything else that I'm missing, chime in. It's nothing that you can't find on a Wikipedia page, but it's one of the Peacemaker is. I wouldn't say he's definitely not an A-list DC hero. He's not a B-list. Barely a C-list. So the fact that James Gunn is pulling from these obscure characters like he did with Guardians of the Galaxy and putting them in the forefront and making them popular and writing them in a cool way, I think is pretty impressive. So Peacemaker actually made his debut in this comic book called the Charlton Comics, and it was way back in the 1960s. And so it was like a backup story. And then in the 1980s, DC acquired this comic book company and then relaunched like a 4 limited issued comic book in 1988. And so he was a part of this kind of Fightin' Five. Number 40 is, if you're looking for the first appearance, out there on eBay or in your local comic book store back issue. So Fightin' Five, number 40, 1966 is his first appearance, kind of a backup story in the back of that. And then DC acquired this character in the 80s and used him around. He appeared in Vigilante, which is a big part of this TV show, had a good long run at DC in terms of his own comics. Peacemaker shows up in that. And then, he is like one of those characters that, like we said, a C-list character, maybe forgettable. Not, is he trying to be like the Punisher or other kind of tropes like that? Anti-hero? Sure. But they decided to bring him in this bunch of misfits called the Suicide Squad in 2021. So he was a big part. John Cena was a big part of this movie and a big part of the plot. And in that movie, he kind of reveals like what he's all about. His main quote, when he's talking to Rick Flag about who he is and what he represents, he says, "I cherish peace with all my heart, and I don't care how many men, women, or children I have to kill to get it." So there you go. That sums up his mission statement as a hero. And I really like that second Suicide Squad, the James Gunn movie. It had some Guardians of the Galaxy vibes in terms of obscure characters, funny moments, comedy, incredible soundtrack. I'm definitely in the same I vibe hard with James Gunn's playlists. Like that dude could put together a soundtrack like nobody's business. And a part of that film, Peacemaker, has some, like all the Suicide Squad folks, have questionable actions, and he's left at the end. You think he's dead at the end of this movie, does some horrible things, but then you discover when they announced after that movie they're doing a Peacemaker show, people were like, "What? I thought he died or something happened. Like I thought he was taken off the table." And then the opening to the TV show is him in the hospital and waking up, and he actually survived. So that's kind of the little backstory of Peacemaker and where he appears out there in comics and movies and TV shows. Guys, am I forgetting anything when it comes to that?
Yeah, you mentioned he was from Charlton Comics, and when DC acquired them, they wanted to do something with them. And Alan Moore was actually, when it was writing for Watchmen, was going to use those Charlton characters, but they said, no, we just bought these. We don't want you to do what you're going to do in Watchmen with them. So Peacemaker is who he based the comedian off of.
Oh, nice. That's a good pull. Yep, 100%. Yeah, so here's this TV show. Man, it is HBO Max. It is not a rated G or PG or PG-13. This is not a TV show for innocent and young ears. Not for the faint of heart. It leans in hard to the rated R HBO Max way of doing things. But I think having that, I mean, imagine if Guardians of the Galaxy was rated R, like the Suicide Squad. I mean, James Gunn can really go in with the jokes and the music and really pushing the boundaries with that. Christian, do you this show? How did you discover it, and when did you watch this thing?
Let's see. I had watched the Suicide Squad movie James Gunn did, and I really enjoyed it. Far better than the first Suicide Squad we got. Mm-hmm. And then I learned there's going to be a show about Peacemaker. I was like, yeah, he was enjoyable, but do we really need an entire show based around this obscure character in DC? And I can say quite faithfully after that, yes, we do. Mm-hmm. And I watched it as soon as it was airing. Just talking with my brother about it as each episode dropped. It's like, oh my gosh, did you see this? Oh my gosh, this was so cool. Mm-hmm. I love it immensely.
Yeah, Daniel, do you have any prior relationship with this character before the Suicides, before HBO, before the movie? Did you know about this character? How did you get into it, and how did you find the show?
No, yeah, I knew nothing. I was following James Gunn after he left Marvel for that brief minute, and then they announced he was doing a DC film, and I was very excited to see what he was going to do with it. And it was going to be R-rated, so for a more, well, I was going to say mature audience, but if you pay attention to the humor, I don't know if that doesn't really work. But yeah, love the Suicide Squad. Didn't like the Peacemaker character, but was super excited to see where they were going to take him with the show. And they did it. They win. It was a phenomenal show. My kind of humor. So
yeah, that's yes. For mature audiences, no. What about older, immature people? Maybe that's what they do. That's it. Like, and I think you're right. Like, this character is someone that you love to hate. If he gets on your nerves and you don't like him and he's too extreme for you, good. That is the appropriate response to this dude. Like, you're not supposed to be like, if he's your favorite superhero, man, we need to have a conversation. And I think he makes you uncomfortable. He does things that are questionable, and you should feel uncomfortable because that's what the Suicide Squad does. And so the trick for the storyteller and the IP is are they going to draw you in to make you care for these characters that are the villains or anathema to the rest of the DC universe? And yeah, that's why Amanda Waller, Suicide Squad, pulled them in the first place. They're expendable. They put a chip in the back of their head that if they don't obey orders, she's going to explode their head. And so that's why they're the Suicide Squad, and they're expendable. And in the Suicide Squad movie, they rebel against Amanda Waller, and she shows up again in this TV show with another mission. In the Suicide Squad movie, it was Project Starfish, I believe. Again, an alien race to come down that they're kind of holding and trying to manipulate or study, and it gets free. Chaos ensues. This one, you learn quickly when he's in the hospital. They're like, "You're free to go," and he's like, opening scene, and his opening conversation with the janitor is I'm like, okay, it just hooked me right away. Like this conversation and the conversation
Yes.
they're having, you're like, this dialogue is brilliant. And he gets free, and he thinks he's free, but then there's another kind of task force from Amanda Waller that's drawing him in for another mission, and that the chip in the back of his head is still there. They can still explode it or whatever. Am I right about that? Was it still there? They kind of manipulated him about that?
I'll look it up.
Yeah. I think that's why or maybe he just wanted to be loved so much.
So, because that's how they could track him.
That's how they could track him. Exactly. So they bring him into this new kind of mission called Project Butterfly. And it takes a while to really understand what this Project Butterfly is. Just like the character Peacemaker, you're like, what does this mean? What's going on? He's just trying to fit in. And in the midst of that, awkward moments of toxic masculinity and uncomfortable behavior, which, yeah, that's there for a reason. They then are trying to figure out what's going on with Project Butterfly. So yeah, the chip was still there, and that's how they were manipulating him. Overall, what were your? I mean, how do you think this story was told? I mean, we don't want to jump right to like our ratings, but as the story progressed, what stood out for you, and why was the opening theme song montage the best in television history?
It's the only opening to a TV show that I will never skip.
100%. I am right there with you. The opening, I will never. Yeah, I even brought my wife and said, "Hey, Cindy, you got to see this." She wasn't quite as amused as I was, but it's like I'm like, I'm never skipping that one. Yeah, I even skipped like Star Wars intros. Like, okay, like yeah, let's get to the show. But this one, yeah, I don't skip. And for people out there who don't have HBO, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. The opening montage has got to be out there somewhere. Go find it. Go listen to it. Christian, how about you?
It's just incredibly well shot and choreographed to the max. And you can tell like they're having fun doing it, which just brings this authenticity to it that it's just a lot of fun watching them have fun making this.
Yeah. It was, and there's even characters in the opening montage intro sequence that you don't find out later who they are. You're like, who's that person? So I can't wait for that. Who's that? I want them to show up at some point. Yeah. Even his sidekick Eagly shows up there and flies out and squawks there at the beginning. Pretty cool. Daniel, what are some themes in this particular TV show that jump out to you in terms of what it's really wrestling with or causes us to wrestle with?
I think one of the things that stood out is there's this line by Myrn, who spoilers if you guys haven't seen the show.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the show, pause now.
Yep. You find out he's a butterfly, but he talks about remembering all of this guy's memories. Yeah, so he has a line where he says he's a murderer, and I know his thoughts, but even he could have changed. And I think you kind of see Peacemaker change from this character you almost despised and like a person you would never want to hang out with. But then, as a viewer, you're watching him change and grow as an individual to somebody who. I mean, let's see. What did she say at the end? I used to think you were like a total dick, but now you're only like 85% a dick. So he went from 100%. He improved by 15%. Yeah, but I think it's
could do that.
Yeah, but I think it's the relationships and the people, and even just understanding his background and where he came from that kind of helps you to have some empathy and allowed that character to grow a little bit. So
yeah, well said. The character growth. He was used as a tool and expendable for a project that they were looking to. But over the course of these episodes, and interactions and frustrations and working things out, by the end, you start to have empathy and sympathy for him, especially when you figure out his background and who raised him, and the childhood trauma and the family trauma that he experienced from a white supremacist as a father. You're like, oh, Okay, now I understand why he's acting this way and what's going on, and to see that growth and try to separate himself from this family system is pretty. It brings you along for a good ride, and by the end, you're almost proud of him at the end. Christian, how about you? What theme or what's the aspect of this show that really stands out for you?
I mean, that was a good one, Daniel. But what I was really thinking about most of his time was the history of abuse in that house, and how with his dad, not only with the white supremacist views, but how he treated his own sons, pitting them against each other, having them fight, and then how that has moved a generation to Peacemaker. He doesn't have a family, but he's taking out all of his insecurities and anger out on the people around him. That's still a form of abuse, even if it's not kept within the family in that regard. So it just shows how people in these situations, they're going to lash out in ways that even they don't understand, because that's the only thing they know. And how over time Peacemaker is able to figure out, oh yeah, I am being a huge jerk right now. Let me, that revelation he gets, it's not like he's a completely transformed person. He doesn't start going to church or anything like that, but it's a step in the right direction where how can I be better to these people? How can I treat them as human beings? That I really appreciate what they did with that.
Yeah. And I, well said. And for me, I keep going back to friendship and that kind of theme of friendship, what we need in our friends and what we're insecure about. Like his friendship with there's Eagly, like the only one who literally an eagle gives him a hug in this TV show. You have to see it to believe it. But his friendship with Vigilante, this character that was taken seriously in the comics is made to somewhat be a big joke in this TV show, but you also get to see like his background and then what he's really looking for and longing for, and the common mission that he really just wants to be part of a team, part of a group, and he really looks up to Peacemaker and wants to be his friend. And their banter back and forth and how they iron that all out throughout the show is comical. It's uncomfortable at times, but also it progresses, and it just shows, kind of reveals that this kind of longing that we all have to want to be a part of a team, to belong to a group, a family, to have deep, authentic friends, to go through life together, so we can, face our trauma and hopefully use our gifts to make the world a better place, even if we're using those gifts in the wrong way. What kind of stewardship are we using our gifts for? This show kind of lifts those up. Yeah. So any other things we're forgetting in terms of the themes that we want to do? I think there's also that theme of kind of aliens and the other. I think the whole thing is about these butterflies that are aliens. I mean, they played around that with Project Starfish, but here you have these butterflies, aliens that are pretty cool. They possess a body. They give them like the strength, and then I think that beside his father's like white supremacist ideology about the alien, the other, othering other people, I think them going side by side really says something about what humans are capable of and what we often do when we're scared of the other.
Yeah, I think going along with that is a big theme of identity and like who someone is. And like when these butterflies take over their host bodies, like they're a completely different person. And how does that affect the people around them? Well, in order to do things correctly, they have to keep infecting other people because they're going to get noticed because they're so different in how they handle the world around them. And then you get with characters like Peacemaker, and once again, how he is working around the people around him, how he is learning how to treat them better. He has this whole thing. He starts to show off with this, I'm a jingoistic man. I'm going to do things for America. America, wrong, right or wrong, it's my country. And learning along the way, like, look, as great as America is, it's still a fallible country. How do I wrestle with what I created myself to be versus who I need to be?
Yeah. Daniel, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think questions about identity are a big deal, because if you got to be careful who and what you are loyal to and why. So yeah, I don't know how much do I want to get into this. I don't know. It's fine. We should keep going.
No, I thought that was good. Loyalty and, what you pledge allegiance to. I mean, he's driving around in the beginning like a car that looks like the flag. His trailer looks like a flag. He's the peacemaker. His dad is the white dragon, who pledged allegiance to a different kind of flag ideology. I think the loyalty, and then the reason he made the misstep in Suicide Squad is because he thought he was being loyal. His actions there. He wanted to be a loyal follower. He's going to stick to the mission, and then in this one, they have a mission and they're all working out, what they're loyal to, what their mission is. So I think that's completely legit when it comes to that. I think, I think is Peacemaker a hero? Is he a villain? Is he anti-hero? Is he something all different? How would you classify Peacemaker in this TV show?
Most definitely an anti-hero, with along the way getting more heroic capabilities and qualities, but never on the verge of becoming a superhero, just based on who he is and the way he handles things. He's an anti-hero in my book.
Yeah. How would you classify him or label him, Daniel?
Oh, I mean, in this show, I'd say he's going through an identity crisis. He doesn't know. He's very confused about who he is and what he wants and what he valued or used to value. We're gonna have to go anti-hero. He saves the day. He saves the day in the end, but he has some trouble getting there.
That's exactly right. I mean, again, it's like, how would you classify Will Rose, like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and now? Like, hopefully there's a character arc, there. And then, how would you classify him in Suicide Squad, and then episode 1, and then the final episode that leaves it open-ended? There is rumors that James Gunn insists there's going to be a season 2, but there hasn't been any like updates or pre-production. It's kind of hanging out there. I think they're trying to figure out the direction of the DCU. But they leave it in a way that you could do a season 2 with Peacemaker. You could bring him into another property and he could show up, and especially with that character growth, I think he'd fit in well. John Cena nails it. He's a good actor, and leaned hard into this character. I'm not a huge wrestling fan, and I don't know how wrestling fans feel about him, but man, he acted his butt off. He acted his clothes off. I mean, he loves being just in his underwear and showing like his complete body in this TV show. After I finished watching, I'm like, man, I think I need to go to the gym. But he it is, and so they acknowledge in this show that it is a part of the larger DC universe. They talk about Aquaman. The Justice League, are referenced, and you might see some backup, some heads in this. But is this, and it seems like the success of this show and the Suicide Squad, and then James Gunn being kind of on the outs of the MCU and then brought back to do Guardians of the Galaxy. But now I think this show was kind of a catalyst that led and opened the door to say, like, hey, is this the new direction we want to go in the entire DC universe with a whole reboot? Danny, do you think this is the tone that they're going with? Is this the catalyst that gave James Gunn the green light for all these huge projects that are ahead of us?
Oh, I mean, for sure, between the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, that was what kicked off James Gunn's success and brought him in to do it. I don't know that I would expect the same kind of grittiness and the same kind of raw, mature humor to be within all the other properties. But I think his ability to bring in obscure characters and place them in a realistic universe, I think that's what he's got. That's what he's got going.
Yeah,
I think it'll work well.
Cool. Christian, what about you, man?
Yeah, as far as him earning this job through these 2 series, definitely that's why they want him there. Not only for what he's done with Marvel, with Guardians, but also with the movie and the series. He's proven he can helm all those things. Now, as far as a tone for the eventual, whatever they're calling this new slate, I sincerely hope not. because this can only work in certain areas.
Right.
I don't want a Superman movie like this. I don't want a Batman movie like this.
Yeah.
But it works perfectly where it's at. Just don't infect anything else with it.
Yeah. I'm kind of right there with you. I think this definitely opened the door and gave him the green light. And obviously, man, James Gunn is good at what he does. And they're like, we see the popularity of what you have done here, and they see the numbers when it comes to Suicide Squad and this TV show on HBO. And so they're like, hey, we want to chase those views, chase that vibe for the DCU and the way he can, I think with all the properties that they've announced, James Gunn, I don't think he's going to make everything like Suicide Squad or everything like Peacemaker. He can change the tone around, just like the movies have their different tones and styles, and hopefully their own characters have their own vibe and way of doing things too. So I think he's a pretty smart guy that he's able to do that. So yeah, I mean, but if you like James Gunn's style and humor and music choice, which I really do, then yeah, I think you should check this TV show out. I couldn't recommend it more. What about you guys? What is this? Is this something that you would recommend, or would you like selectively choose certain people to recommend it to?
Definitely selectively choosing. This is not for everyone. And I mean, we've even had discussions on the show before. Joe is not a big fan of this.
Right.
And he thinks it's a little too cringy 12-year-old humor. And sometimes it does get there, and it irks me when it goes that far. Mm-hmm. But as far as plot-wise, the story and everything, I'm there for it. And even with the annoying stuff like that.
This is exactly, it's exactly the kind of humor that would have made me very uncomfortable in public school as a conservative evangelical. Like mm-hmm. I couldn't have done this 15 or 20 years ago, but yeah, it's definitely not for everyone. If you like adolescent humor and a great story and great character development, but you really also got to enjoy adolescent humor and not mind a whole lot of F words. So it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can handle all those things, I say, yeah, I think even looking at his character, like we probably know people like this. There's a little bit of arrested development with him in a sense that like he's kind of stuck trying to impress his father, longing for friendships, the potty humor, the F-bombs, is, trying to be a man's man, that kind of thing has stuck with him. But he's starting to see through this Project Butterfly, and if you think about butterflies starting in as one thing, and then chrysalis and becoming a cocoon and emerging as something different out of that. I think it fit that theme is what's happening with Peacemaker and his character. This emergence of a new creation, a new character that's emerging from something that was once before, regardless of how traumatic his childhood was and toxic and appalling the viewpoints of his dad and his family. Hopefully, when it says Project Butterfly, that I had no idea when they began talking about this, that was going to be the overall thing, this transformation of becoming something different out of it, I think is a big theme that you can run with when it comes to Peacemaker. And I think it was masterfully written, good humor. For some, this kind of humor. I mean, yeah, Joe and I disagreed about like Elf, and I get it if you're like, man, I don't like that, but man, that's just right down my alley of humor. I've been getting in trouble for laughing about that stuff since first grade, and I still do today. So as a 50-year-old, so that's kind of the struggle is real, folks. The struggle is real. Yeah, so go check it out. Let us know what you think. For those of you who have seen this show, if we're missing any things, if there's characters that you really liked, I mean, Judo Man, come on. I mean, that guy, that was excellent. If there are aspects to the show that you want to lift up, let us know on social media, on our website. Hunt us down and let us know what you think. All right, let's wrap this thing up. As we're going through these series, been asking questions about kind of our TV habits. We talked about movies and drive-ins. We talked about what snacks, our go-to snacks in the theater, and then we have all our in-home theater. There's so much streaming, so many TV shows. Daniel, what is your binging habit when you really discover a show you really, really like, whether it's put out weekly or it's all drops at once? What are some of your binging habits? What do you do? When do you do it? What do you eat while you watch? Like, what are some of your binging habits? You don't mind sharing with our thousands of listeners out there?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have 3 kids, so my binging habits happen after bedtime. And that's when I, depending on the show, if I have access to the whole show, I will watch until I am falling asleep on the couch, which is really frustrating when I actually do fall asleep on the couch, because then I have to go back the next day and try to remember where I left off.
Especially if he keeps going from episode to episode, continue next episode. That's happened to me. I tried to watch it and I tried to rewatch some of the show. I fell asleep, do half of it, and then I woke up and it was like already on episode 6. And I was like, wait a minute, I was in episode 2. Wow, that was a good long sleep.
That's the worst.
Yeah. So what is like the time, like your bedtime for your kids? What's like prime time? Like you're not quite sleepy yet, but you're ready to watch the show. What time in the evening does that land for you?
All right. Yeah. Well, start around 8:30 or 9,
Okay.
and then I get tired anywhere between 11:30 and 1:30.
Okay.
Now I feel like I need to explain. I don't binge TV every night of the week, but when I finally find a show that I really enjoy, I'll just keep going till I can't go any longer.
Nice. And I think the streaming services are being a little smart now. I mean, I think Disney Plus does it. HBO's been doing it. Like Netflix dumped and then people binged and it was over and they stopped talking about it. I think drawing them out, they relearned that, when you have these episodic TV shows week in and week out, people start talking about the episodes, whereas Last of Us, Mandalorian, they want a week-long drawn out conversation around what's going to happen in speculation, and then they drop another one. So this kind of dropping one episode or a couple of episodes or 3 episodes at once, talk about it, and then they want to draw people's subscription out. They don't want you to get that like trial for a couple of days, watch an entire series, then drop it. So they're learning as much as us. Yeah, Dan.
No, yeah, but there have been times where I will wait a month into a show so that I can subscribe for a month shorter than I normally would, and then that way I got a few episodes to keep going on, keep watching.
Dan has the geek hacks, man. Whether it's he brings out some wisdom and how to do this stuff. Like I now know how on my Roku to do the up toggle to know where it is in terms of how much duration I have left in the TV show. I did not know that until Daniel taught me that trick. I was like, man, that's so good. Yeah, good stuff. Christian, how about you? How do you binge? What's your pattern or habit?
Well, I've become my father. I always knew it was going to happen.
Hey, that tracks with Peacemaker.
Yeah. He is one of those people. We're both undiagnosed with something. I don't know if it's ADHD or what have you. I don't have the money to go to the doctor to tell me what's wrong with me. But he is one of those people that as opposed to me, I can read an entire book in one sitting, or at least I used to be able to do that, and then do nothing else. I'm just there. I'm reading it. I used to be able to just watch something, but he has to do these things like 15-minute increments, or he'll watch one show and then he'll watch a different show. And I've been plagued with that for the past couple of months. It's not even funny.
Wow.
Like I've been binging through the Twilight Zone right now to rewatch it all. I could watch 3 episodes at a time, then I have to go watch something else. I have to watch a different anime or a different Western animated cartoon or something like that. It's not fair. I used to be able to just keep going, and now I always knew it was going to happen, but I become my father.
That's well, the first step is always recognizing that we have. But I think I think that's true. Like I definitely, now that I'm falling asleep in front of like TV shows, my wife going like, "Will, are you up?" I'm like, "Dude, have I become Bill Rose? Like falling asleep in the chair during a TV show?" And my mom yelling at my dad to wake up to keep watching. But yeah, I'm with you. It depends on the show and what's going on. For me, I have my Star Wars habit of like Mandalorian drops, and I wake up first thing in the morning, have my coffee and watch because I want to be on point and watch it so I can be on the internet the rest of the day. But if it's a show that's been out a long time that has a lot of episodes, I'll try to binge it and do a couple episodes a night until I get sleepy and do those things. So So yeah, now my kids are out of the house. They're in college. I'm seeing our empty nesters. We have a little bit more time in the evening. Now I have the dynamic of like, what do we want to watch together? And then when I'm like, Cindy, I release you to whatever else you need to do so that I can watch things you don't want to watch, and vice versa. So yeah, it depends on the show, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the dynamic of streaming and binging shows and then going back, it does fascinate me that it's going back to these like one episode a week drops to draw people in, and then you have all these streaming services, and then they're going to bundle it together. And like, we're just back to cable again, and we're back to weekly TV shows. We're right back in the 80s again, y'all. You know, I mean, yeah. Except I can watch it on my phone. So that's a little different. If you would have told me, 12-year-old Will, that one day I'd be watching Star Wars on my phone on a plane on the way back from Europe, I would have been like, you're crazy. But it happened. It happened. Awesome, y'all. This was super fun. Y'all, I wouldn't recommend murdering people for peace, but I do think it's a good conversation to have about, what makes peace in the world. Our world longs for peace, and we're all called to be peacemakers. There's even a beatitude in the Gospel of Matthew. It says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And so yeah, I encourage you to be that and discern that and do that in community. And we're here for you to help you think through those things as well. And as we wrap up and close out this episode on Peacemaker, there's only one way to say goodbye, and that's peace out, y'all.
This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries Podcast Network.